This is take two of this video, so I don't know what happened. Last time I tried to discuss autoimmune conditions and psychosomatic illness. I thought it was a really interesting post and parallel because I've just recently gone through a psychosomatic experience, and I can just see comparisons between that and the client with autoimmune conditions. So I'll tell you a bit of background on that. I'm going to Kathmandu next week. Can't wait. The last time I was there, I was caught in an earthquake, and it wasn't overly traumatic because it happened when I was at the airport, and we got out on the day. But it knocks you about a bit. It scares you a bit because the earth isn't meant to do that. And when it does, it's sort of like, whoa, like a lot changes in your mindset. But a couple of weeks ago, I started getting this really serious cough, and part of my head was like, if I'm going to get this chest infection, it felt like I was getting a chest infection, I'm not going to be able to go to Kathmandu. And while that filled me with dread, I also noticed that it was really right around my throat. But the coughing was only at night, and I felt 100% well. So it was a little bit odd. So I went to my doctor, and I said to her, look, I've got this really bad cough. I've got this trip coming up, but I feel 100% well. What do you think? And she said, probably a wattle allergy, like from pollen. Do I live near a wattle tree? Yes, I do. But I always have. So, but I know these things can change. So she gave me some antihistamine medicines, so I took those, and it made absolutely no difference, and the cough was getting worse and worse and worse. And I spoke to her, my hiking buddy, about it, and she said, "Do you think you're worried about going to Kathmandu?" And it's the first time someone had linked my coughing with Kathmandu, and I had a think about that, and I thought, well, I'm a bit worried about going, but I'm not a lot worried. So again, I talked that through with my doctor too, that I was a bit worried, but not over the top worried. And could that be linked to my cough? And she said it could be. Try the medicine, see what happens. If you feel like your thought process is getting overwhelming about going into this earthquake zone, then hi Linda, how are you? Just talking psychosomatic illness, which I had a few weeks ago. I think we talked about it. Yeah, so anyway, my doctor said if you feel overwhelmingly that you're anxious about going to Kathmandu, then, we can look at some other counselling and support. I just thought that was an interesting comparison to autoimmune, because there we were looking in the medical area, looking at a few medicines, taking a few medicines, really not knowing what was going on. And I thought autoimmunes are like that too. We often can't get a definitive diagnosis. We can't get a drug that makes a difference or makes much of a difference. And the people around us who love us would like it to be simple and a medicine and over with, but it's not. Autoimmunes aren't like that. They are long-term. They are often triggered by a stress or a trauma or an illness. And I just thought it was a good comparison to psychosomatic stuff. I had a psychosomatic issue when my father passed away, because he died of stroke, and that started with headaches, and I started getting headaches, and they got worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. The symptoms are really, really real, and they can really trick you to think that this is not psychosomatic. And I'm not saying that an autoimmune is psychosomatic. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying that, there is a stress that's similar. It is hard to diagnose. That's similar. Medicines might not work. That's similar. And even coming to terms with what the actual trigger is similar. So that's the comparison. So that was just a little contemplation that I had, and I thought it would make an interesting post for those of you who live with autoimmunes. And I know that the people around you would just love you to have some medicine and get well. And they're often floundering as to why, and they're like, well, is it all in your head? I prefer the words it's in your brain. Some things are ingrained in the brain, some habits, some ways of thinking, feeling, living are ingrained in the brain, and it's really hard work to move on from that. So that's your little bit for today. Hello, Emma. How are you? You'll find this one interesting. All right. Happy days. See you.